Shalom, all praises to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai and double honors to the great millstone. Today we're going to talk about carbon dating and carbon-14 dating and finding out the age of bones. The whole point is that Esau, the so-called white man, doesn't really know. He's just guessing. Like the term 65 million years. They just guessed it. They have no evidence to support it that any of us agree with. Okay, they can't carbon-14 date anything to get 65 million years ago. They can't use a mass spectrometer to get 65 million years. They just guessed and have some evidence to support that they're just guessing and making this number 65 million years and the age of these bones that they're finding in the earth. Alright. First, I'm gonna go to radiocarbon dating. First thing it says is radiocarbon dating, or carbon dating, is a radiometric dating technique that uses the decay of carbon-14 to estimate the age of organic material. So they admit it's not even definite. So they don't really know. Such as wood or leather, up to about 58,000 to 62,000 years. So that's 65 million years is way beyond 62,000 years. Okay, so they're off on that. So they can't use carbon-14 dating to determine 65 million years, and the gauge is between 58 and 62,000. Okay. All right. It was presented. Carbon dating was presented to the world by Willard Libby, 1949. Okay, that's the point I want right there. My next point is how carbon-14 rating can be affected, can be altered by weather. Where we at? First, okay, variations in carbon-14 production, and this is the whole point. Weather, cosmic weather, can affect carbon-14 data. So they analyze the rate of decay to determine how old something is. When that rate of decay can be altered by weather, by radiation. All right, here's an example. Two different trends can be seen in tree rings. This thing, you count the tree rings and that determines how old the tree is, which that's flawed also. But we're focusing on the carbon-14. First, there is a long-term oscillation, which is a fluctuation going up and down, with a period of about 9,000 years. So how are they saying something is 65 million years old, or even 68,000 years old, and they have a 9,000 year difference that could be an error, up or back? So the point is, they don't know. They're just guessing, which causes radiocarbon dates to be older than true dates for at least 2,000 years, and too young before that. The known fluctuations in the Earth's magnetic field strength match up quite well with the oscillation. Cosmic rays are deflected by magnetic fields, so when there are lower magnetic fields, more carbon-14 is produced. So how is carbon-14 dating accurate? Leading to a younger apparent age of a sample from those periods. Conversely, a higher magnetic field leads to lower carbon-14 production and an older age, like an older apparent age. So the point is proven that weather, radiation, can alter the amount of carbon-14 in an organism. That's the point. So therefore, Esau, the so-called white man, cannot say that something is this age or that age by carbon dating alone. And that was it on that. And here's an example. This is a website I found. You can see it up here. A National Center for Science Education defending the teaching of evolution, Darwinism, and climate science. All right. Now, the point for this article is carbon-14 dating, and they have creationists that believe in, supposedly believe in the Bible, you know, and this is more than likely Edomites that believe in, you know, a pale-faced Jesus, white Jesus, you know, so to speak. So this is the questioning, the line of question I'm gonna read on what they were saying. They both have points. So remember, carbon-14 dating. Well, let me let this read. It says answer. How does carbon-14 dating work? Cosmic rays in the upper atmosphere are constantly converting the isotope nitrogen-14, let's just N14, into carbon-14 or radiocarbon. Okay, and just based on this statement that he just made, cosmic rays in the upper atmosphere are constantly converting this nitrogen into carbon-14. That fluctuates up and down, so that will determine whether a large amount of carbon-14 is in the Pacific organism or a lower amount of carbon-14 is in a Pacific organism. So he just cut himself. So you can't determine the age of an organism if the carbon-14 and the amount of nitrogen is in the air is fluctuating. These paleontologists even admit that there was more carbon in the air during ancient times. So therefore, more carbon-14 is likely to be reduced. With more carbon in the air, with less carbon in the air, is less likely for more carbon-14 to be produced. Living organisms are constantly incorporating this C14, carbon-14, into their bodies, along with other carbon isotopes. When the organism dies, they stop incorporating new carbon-14, and the old carbon-14 starts to decay back into N14 by emitting beta particles. The older an organism remains are, the less beta radiation it emits, because its carbon-14 is steadily dwindling at a predictable rate, which they determine is the rate. That's something they came up with, these scientists, so-called scientists. So if we measure the rate of beta decay in an organic sample, we can calculate how old a sample is. Carbon-14 decays with a half-life of 5,700 years. Okay, now the first thing he said was cosmic rays in the upper atmosphere are constantly converting nitrogen into carbon-14. Those levels fluctuate, therefore you cannot have an accurate date on what an organism is. All right, these are the creationists. Keith and Anderson, radiocarbon dated a shell of a living freshwater mussel and obtained an age of over 2,000 years. So these creationists that believe in the Bible, supposedly, dated a living organism and it got 2,000 years. I see our creationists claim that this discredits carbon-14, well, which it does, and he actually admits that it does. How do you reply? It does discredit carbon-14 data of freshwater mussels. So he's saying, yes, all organisms can't be dated by carbon-14 dating. Okay, so he admits that. But that's about all what I just said. Keith and Anderson show considerable evidence that the mussels acquired much of their carbon from the limestone of the waters they lived in, and from some very old humans as well. So he cut himself again, because the different atmospheric changes and things that are around the organism can alter the carbon date. So therefore, you can never come up with an accurate carbon date, the rate of decay. You can't come up with it because of the surrounding carbon that are in the other organisms around it. So you can never come up with a date, an accurate date. All right, that's pretty much what I want on this page. All right.